what we're going to be doing here is exploring many of the different ways that we have either we personally have done or people that we know have done to bring in extra cash. Our kind of way of doing this is, again, I had a full-time job and we were working hard to make that less and less with small, individual, different, diverse ways of bringing in cash. And so we're just going to explore some of those. You'll get a golden nugget or two from this and say, ooh, that's an interesting idea I've never thought of. And if it is, we're not going to go into a lot of depth into the different things that we did. So you can always email us or catch us and say, tell me a little bit more about how this one worked. So a couple of thoughts about starting a business. We've heard a lot of different things, and as Amy has said, there's a lot of different approaches to this. Our approach is to generally jump in and not know exactly what we're doing as we went into it. Because of that, and I do think that that's how a lot of homesteaders work, because of that, one of the things that was really important to us, and we're really glad that it happened, was we didn't have a lot of capital to put into it. And a lot of our experimentation happened on the convent property. So that wasn't even property that we owned, so we didn't want to invest an extraordinary amount of capital into that. And that was good for us, because if we started out on something and then discovered, ooh, this is not working for us, then it was easy to pull back out. As opposed to if I buy a tremendous amount of money, put into it, and now I think, by gosh, I'm going to push through this because how much I've invested in it. So one recommendation that we make is don't invest a lot at the beginning. Try this a little bit on your own, and with a little bit of capital, so that you can begin to figure out if this is really what you want to do. There are three things that we see that kind of get in the way. Is one, you thought you were passionate about this thing and you discovered, I'm not really passionate about this. I do not like milking cows, or cows and I don't get along, which would be a real mistake if that's what you think. But so that could be, it could be that your passion is not there. It could be that you don't have a market the way that you thought you did. When we first came into Steubenville, Ohio, my wife is a potter. She's a very good potter. And so we thought, okay, well, she'll be able to sell some of her pottery. And there was a craft fair that they did in Toronto, and we thought, oh, this is perfect. So we'll just sell it in there. And we went to the craft fair, and the craft fair was all football lawn ornaments, and it was the ugliest craft fair we had ever seen.
He's not being objective here.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And her pottery, not a drop of it.
We didn't know our market, though. You know, we had moved in within 15 miles of Homer Laughlin, like the home of Homer Laughlin, as in Fiesta Ware. And here I am with my handmade stuff. Like, it did not fly.
So you may find that you thought you had a market and you do not have a market. The other thing is that in terms of market, it's really helpful if you're very close to a major city. So the people in our area go to Cleveland. That's 2.5 hours away, and then they can sell meat and lamb, and I mean, they can really go to town, but I'm not driving 2.5 hours to go to Cleveland to sell at their farmers markets. So that's something that you would want to think about. And the other thing, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't think about, and I think you really need to think about, is what does your farm do well? Okay, so a lot of us, we've watched on YouTube, we've seen that we can make $100,000 on microgreens or something like that, and then we try and do it on our farm. That's not what our farm does well. Okay, it's the fertility, the type of soil, again, the market, it may not be close. So I would say really go at this a little bit at a time, and try it out, experiment with it. Again, our education has always been to jump in. As opposed to going and finding out and having somebody teach us, we have a tendency to jump in and learn that way. So we get a cow, and then we just start figuring out how the cow works. And one of the things that a dairy farmer said to us, because we do things that, of course, many of the people that we talk to about what we do say, you can't do that. You can't raise a cow on grass alone. It's not possible. We say, well, we're glad that the cows don't know that, because that's what they're doing. And so that's a dairy guy said to us, the best thing you've got going for you is you have no idea what you're doing. And I think there's real value in that you don't come out of an ag school. And I work with the soil and water, and I watch these young people come out of the ag school. They oftentimes do not have much experience, but they know what the book says, and so they are instructing these new people in exactly what the book says, and they're perpetuating things that aren't true, things that don't fit for the homesteader. Okay, it really fits the commercial model, and the commercial model is usually not what their goals are, not what our goals are. For all of you, one thing I want you to think about is, what is your expertise? And whatever your particular expertise is. So ours would be more or less the dairy cow. And whenever we hear NPR, media, anybody talk about our expertise, 99% of it's wrong. So I would imagine that most of you, for your expertise, when you would hear the media or how to homeschool or things like that, you would listen to it and think, where do they get this? So assume that the media, oftentimes YouTube, other things like that, are not giving you the best information. And the best way to learn, as we've talked about, is observation, is watching and seeing. So just
all of that leading up to the big question, if you're on your homestead and you're saying, I want this homestead to make money for me, is, first of all, how much? How much money do you want it to make for you? And of course, if we won the lottery, we'd all say, thank you very much, and we'd hang on to it. So maybe we think the sky's the limit on that how much. But let's try and nail it down a little bit more. How much cash you're trying to provide from the farm is going to, answering the question, how much do I want it to do, is, first of all, to beg the question, how many of our needs are going to depend on the cash that we're making from the farm? Because the amount of cash you require to meet your actual needs, not that other number that we were talking about that could be the sky's the limit. Hey, I'd love it to make me $1 million, but it probably won't. We're talking about, what do I need it to make? That need, that amount that you need, is going to have a very direct effect on how you farm. Because the lower you can make that need be, the bigger your margins of experimentation and error, and the more imagination you can bring to what you're trying to do, and the less time you spend rushing to YouTube and looking at the internet and saying, like, I'm going to try the thing that the guy in New York is doing, where he's making $150,000 a year selling greens in New York City, which you're probably not going to be able to duplicate. But if you need that $150,000, you're going to be tempted to imitate him. So how little you require. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you need to go on a Trappist monk diet and own nothing to get there. I'm only saying that farms have, like, your small acreage ecology has the possibility of fulfilling some of your needs directly. Human beings today, almost every need we have, down to literally flushing our crap, is something we pay for. We pay money for everything. City people can't move without translating that motion into something with a dollar sign in front of it, right? Everything costs money. That's a real risk for us, because it means that as I'm going through my life and things aren't perfect, and I'm thinking, I'd like to improve this, that any improvement we imagine comes with a dollar sign in front of it. And we know that. We can't not think that. So what do we what does the normal person think when he thinks, I want to make my life better? He thinks, I need more money. And how am I going to get that? We've got to, as homesteaders and farmers, we have to dissociate in our own minds our needs from that dollar sign. We need to be able to think directly. And of course we do, because we say, I need tomatoes in the summertime to be happy. So I'll plant a tomato, and then it won't be a cash exchange. In fact, this year I'll save seeds. Next year I'll plant my seeds, and it really won't have anything to do with the cash world at all. So as we're figuring out what we want this land to do for us in terms of cash dollars, we have to think like farmers and homesteaders. First of all, how many cash dollars can we just take off the table? We won't need them because our farm's already doing that for us. That's going to determine a lot of things, like if I can reduce my needs for cash, that's going to affect how much time I have to spend building this farm. You know, Daniel went in at some length into the fact that first we have to start with a learning curve starting at 0. We're as ignorant as his 3-year-old. He doesn't have a 3-year-old, but if he had a 3-year-old, we'd be that ignorant on certain aspects of farming. And so we have to build into what we intend to do that we've got to educate ourselves. The lower we can get our actual cash needs, the better, because then we have time to spend educating ourselves and not worrying that we're not making very much money. Getting those needs down also affects how relaxed we can be about how long this might take to build up our farm, to build up our knowledge base. So if you were to quit your job before you started your farm business, or in order to start your farm business, how long is it going to be before you panic and go back to the city? You know, like, okay, I'm going to throw over my law practice and I'm going to go raise chickens and sell them in town. And if they don't sell very well, how long is it going to be before you're back knocking on the door of your old partner saying, I got to come back, this is not working? It determines how fast you're going to burn out in terms of how many hours can you say, or how much of the day can you say, I can sit down in the shade right now because I'm not terrified that my bills aren't going to get paid. So our first piece of advice when people want to develop an on-farm business is don't quit your day job, because the whole point about your day job is that its whole purpose is that dollar sign. That's why raise your hand if you do what you love and get paid to do it, and you would do it if nobody paid you. I'm seeing a few hands, but not very many. But you do get paid. So now we're going to drop your hand if, in fact, you still have to make money. Okay, it's not very many. So the more we're careful about how we get into this, the sooner we can stop doing that job we don't want to do.
Now, this is hard, because then this means that for a little while, I'm doing 2 jobs, okay? Because I'm keeping my old job and now I'm taking on the homestead jobs. And one of the things that we frequently see is that we've got couples who are both working. One of the things we love about the move to the homestead is often that one of those incomes at least can disappear. So now we've got one of the couple who said, my full-time job now is the homestead, and you still keep bringing in some cash because we have to pay the electric bills, we have to pay insurance, we have to pay those kinds of things. So, but trying to make the farm do it, as Beth said, is crushing some ways. And there'll be a lot of people who say, no, be an entrepreneur, you can do this. And I applaud them. I think that that's great. But that's not the experience that we've had. And it's not we see so many people that try that and end up giving up. And to us, that's the hardest thing, is to watch the person who gave it a shot and then gave up. Because we think, before you give up, email us and let us try and talk you out of giving up, because there are things that can make you not give up if you change a few things perhaps. And so here are just a few ideas of things that you can do to start eliminating the cash that you need. Obviously, food. So, that's what the homesteading starts off with. So I'm going to start raising as much food as we can. We raise, again, 90 to 95% of what we eat, and it's primarily through meat and potatoes. Okay? We raise about a ton or ton and a half of potatoes. Okay? It doesn't take that much space to do. It's some work, and they store really well. So it's a great food.
You can tell this is a man giving this talk, right? Meat and potatoes, like this is dream. You have to have dairy and vegetables.
Oh yeah, well there's those things too.
Like tons and tons of dairy products.
I'm just trying to get the guys on board.
That's right. Tons and tons of dairy products and
That's
four-season gardening, too.
That's right. And we, as I said, we eat sour cream and we eat butter and we eat all those wonderful things. So we eat really well. And again, as Beth said, this is not, when we're eliminating the cash need, we are not going down to a poverty. We eat better than any of you eat. I'll bet. Okay, there may be a few of you that eat as well as we do, but not many of you.
We eat better than Elon Musk eats.
Yeah, because he can't get the food that we get. It is all grass. It is without any chemicals. It is the best food that there is. And we live a really stellar, exciting life. So cash does not provide that. Now, we did have one, we did have one aspiring homesteader, and Beth may have already mentioned him, who said, he's getting ready to go on land. He's got a huge mortgage. This is one of the things we say: do not let your real estate agent talk you into spending. Well, you can spend more. Spend as little as you can on the house so that you have money to put into the farm. So our 17 acres, the original 17 acres, was $11,000.
And it had been on the market for 6 months because nobody wanted it.
Now that tells you something about what we bought, okay? But we put a tremendous amount of energy into it, and now it is this wonderful, wonderful farm. And now it's even better because our house burned down and our children are rebuilding. But this homesteader said to me, he said, well, I have to have a trip to Europe every year. Okay, well, good luck with that. You're not going to do that with chickens, okay? So in any event, you're going to have to be more frugal if you are going to choose this lifestyle. There is a wonderful guy out of Missouri. I assume he's still doing it. Eicher. John Eicher. And one of the things that he talks about is that the farm economy and the urban economy are two different economies. The urban economy is a cash economy. The farm economy is not a cash economy. Okay? We do things through barter. We do things through raising it ourselves and things like that. So there's a tremendous number of things that you can get from your farm that you don't have to pay for. Your food, your heating. So, of course, burning wood, passive solar. As we're rebuilding this house, we're building into it a lot of passive solar, and we're building into it a very interesting thing that my children all call the castle oven, which my wife will call
It's a Kachelofen, which my German sister says, it's a Kachelofen, and I say Kachelofen, and she says, no, Kachelofen. Okay, right, it's a tile masonry heater.
So it's a very large, and that's what we hope is going to heat the house. It will also have built-in things to a stove, things like that. So we'll tell you about it after we've done it and tried it. But that's, again, this is part of, in the rebuilding process, one of the things that we're thinking about. The cooling budget, get rid of the air conditioners, use passive systems for that. Reduce the transportation budget. My commute is about a 5-minute walk from our B&B over to the house right now, which I absolutely love. So do as much as you can. Stay in the old cars. Keep repairing them. One of the things we're also trying to do is build community. So use your auto mechanic. Don't buy new from somewhere else. Go to him. This is money going to him. Ditch the television and anything else that foments a false need. We have a tremendous number of false needs. When we go on farm consults, people say to us, oh my gosh, you saved me $20,000 in the first minute because you said I didn't need that tractor. And I didn't need this and I didn't need that. These are all things that everybody is telling you, oh, you must have. You must have a high pressure water system. You must have 6-strand high tensile fence as your perimeter fence. Not been our experience. We've gotten by on a lot less than those things. So question those things. Do farm work and get rid of the gym membership. If you eat well and live well, you don't need nearly as much medicine. And avoid the quick trip to the emergency room. If it's a broken arm, obviously. But if it's a sore stomach, maybe not. I mean, we don't vaccinate for anything but COVID. Of course, we vaccinate for COVID.
We vaccinate for tetanus. That's
Yes,
it.
that's right.
And that's because tetanus is really ugly and you don't want it.
Yes. Homeschool. Convince your kids that blue jeans are cooler than whatever fashionable thing is out there. Grow what you eat and eat what you grow, and then store what is extra so that that can go into your food. Barter. We do a lot of barter. We really love barter. We even have a doctor that we barter with. So we do his AI for his animals, and then he does most
AI
of it.
in this case stands not for avian influenza or artificial intelligence. It's artificial insemination.
And we do that with him, and he does doctoring for us for free. Hand in hand with this idea of reducing your cash, you can start building up the homestead with the money that you're saving. Not, and again, not just money, but with your time. Your dairy cow is the most direct access to energy. So we say don't bring any animal on the farm that you have to feed from the feed store. If you bring a cow on, you do not have to buy any feed for that animal. That grass is going to come in. God will provide you with grass. You give it to them. And then once the cow is going and you are milking from the cow, it will feed everything else on the farm. So just bring them in as you have food. So every time I see $1 going off the farm, I'm saying, how could the farm have provided that? Intensive grazing. Now, a cow providing you with milk has to be managed. You don't just turn your cow loose and let it eat whatever grass it wants. It has to be moved, and this isn't a talk on intensive grazing, but intensive grazing is very simple, and all you have to do is go to Laura and Mary in Little House. Their intensive grazing was a stake and a picket, or a rope, okay? And that's all that you need. And you just put in a stake, and you move that cow, and you move that cow, and you move that cow. And in a week, you will be an expert at intensive grazing. And you'll say, oh my gosh, this really works. The grass is coming in where the cow wasn't, and you'll also know how long to keep your cow there because you said, ooh, that was too long. They hit it too hard. Or I could have made it bigger. Or I could have. So just try with something as simple as that. That's all you need is to think about that, and then you'll be able to go from there. 4-season gardening. We started with the dairy cow. We've now got meat. We've now got milk. And we're thinking we would really like to have vegetables all year round. We're in Ohio. It gets very cold in Ohio. We have one hoop house that is giving us 4-season gardening, and we have salads all year round.
It's 10 by 30. It's not a hoop house like this.
Yeah,
little bit.
No. Yeah, and it gives us vegetables all year round. It gives us, because we have the potatoes in the storage and the squash in the storage, and now we want to have greens, and it's providing us with that. A pig, once you've had a cow for 3 days, you have to have a pig because you've got that much milk coming in. And what am I going to do with it? I'm not going to dump it. I'm going to give it to a pig, and now I've got pork chops. Okay, so it's a really, again, a wonderful system that God has given to us. Small flock of chickens. Everybody, whether they're in the city or not, should all have at least 1 or 2 chickens for every person in the household, because you've got that much waste going off your dinner table. So you can easily feed chickens for free, okay? Then as you develop more and you have cows and you've got other scraps, then you are going to you could add more chickens. Just with all of these things, don't add past what you can feed from the farm. As soon as you start saying, well, I've now got to bring in feed, a little bit of feed is fine. Our son, who is the primary pig feeder, he needs to, if we get in late, he needs to be able to have a little bit of corn or something like that he can throw to the chickens so that he's not grumpy that he had to go down and do this chore. Okay, so you need to have a little bit of backup. But generally, again, pigs will eat anything. Okay, and the other thing that's wonderful is, for example, with the sisters, they save their food scraps for us, and all of that goes to the pigs. So is there a restaurant, is there a grocery store where you can get these food scraps in order to feed your pig? The only thing that, the drawback there is, part of why we homestead is because we don't want to eat what's in the grocery store, and I'm not sure I want to feed my feed what I eat, the grocery store garbage. So we know a really good farmer who's very good, but he's using a tremendous amount of dairy waste. Not dairy waste. He's using a tremendous amount of bakery waste. And I think, ugh, all that white flour going into your dinner, I'm not sure that that's the best thing to do. Bake your own bread, build your own outbuildings, put up your own fences, do your own maintenance. Again, I'm so glad that we didn't have the money to solve our problems with money. We had to solve them by fixing them ourselves with our children, and the payback right now is extraordinary. That our children all learn to do those things and go way beyond us. So again, as I said, we've got timber framers and we've got brick masons and we've got all that, and they are all bringing that to the house that they're building now. And one of the things that occurred to us as we started speaking is, if we had started on better land with more things there for us, we wouldn't have learned all this stuff, and we wouldn't be talking to you about all these things that we learned. So we really are very grateful for the fact that we didn't know what we were doing, that we are learning, that we had to teach ourselves to do things as we went along, and that our children now are way surpassing us in what they're doing.
So do you see where we're going with this? We're looking first at the homestead and saying, what can it do? What can we do with it? All with the object of, before we start trying to make money, figure out how much we need to make and what we have to work with to make it. Because homesteading increases our skills and develops free resources, now we have something to sell or barter and add to the common good, to our local economy. And in all of this talk, we are going to be